everyone, welcome back to the Nello Reads channel. Our first malicious compliance story of the day comes from Sapphire Rose 11. Wounded Orphan Bird has other first choices too, Karen. For clarity, this happened a couple summers ago at a discount shop. The employees wear red, and you can always find us in the middle of nowhere or a rundown strip mall. I was the only assistant manager on staff because we were always short-staffed. Our system was updated, and eventually assistant managers couldn't print off applications for our incapable general managers. And I was bouncing between setting up our display of summer decor. I'd opened the box with our cement garden birds, the really fat ones everyone has. It was evident from the crushed cardboard our driver had crushed them during the delivery. I put them up on the shelf and threw away the demolished pieces. As the assistant manager, I have sales floor privileges to mark down with damage stickers to adopt these rescues to a loving gardener. And begin scene. Our cast, me, and Rob, rude old B-word. I left my flock of injured rescued cement fat birds to go get the discount stickers. And before I ever get a chance to reprice them for the markdown, in stomps Rob. These birds are all broken. It's ridiculous you expect me to pay, I think it was $5, when this is the best looking one and his head is broken. It was 5 small green chips she literally could have fixed with some school supplies. She kept babbling for a little longer about how we are crooks and scammers for charging such a ridiculous price for a clearly defective product. I waited for the iconic, "So what are you going to do about it?" and thrust the bird at me. I was kinda offended she said so many mean things to a bird with a bad haircut, when a summer before that, I sold an alligator to a good home missing a whole front foot. Well, it's not his fault this happened. Our delivery drivers are very rushed people who are not gentle. I don't care about whose fault it is. I want to know what you are going to do to fix it. Cue malicious compliance. I suddenly remember how she was at one point scolding me because she didn't even want the bird. He will make her garden ugly. She's only getting it because she feels owed a discount for seeing a broken bird without a discount sticker. Well, I'll make sure he gets a good home, cause you said you don't want him cause he's broken, right ma'am? Rob, suddenly very confused and getting flustered. No, I want to buy him. I just want to know what you are going to do to make it right with me about this bird. Right, and you said he'd make your garden ugly. So, I should sell him to someone with an ugly garden that will think he is pretty. Rob growls and walks away. So many of the Karens in these stories treat discount stores like they're in some high-stakes business meeting full of, company executives. They go hardcore on these salespeople. If they use their negotiation skills in maybe a field that required them, they probably wouldn't have to be shouting at a minimum wage discount store employee. Our next story comes from Catastrophx. Hearing aids are not earbuds. This happened a few years ago, around the time I was 17. I had just started working at a smallish cafe run by a well-known family in our area. I knew some people who had worked there before, and they had told me that for the most part, the owners were great, very chill and laid back when it was slow. They normally weren't bad about breathing down the employees' necks. Their oldest daughter, who also helped run everything, was the one who was very peculiar. We'll call her Karen. I am officially diagnosed with a hearing deficiency. Not enough to be considered deaf, but more than hard of hearing. So I wear hearing aids. My first day before we opened, my coworkers asked me if they could do anything else to help me out, and we eventually started talking about the hearing aids in general. While talking about everything, I mentioned they had Bluetooth capabilities, so I could play music through them. Not that I would, but I could. Karen had been in the room at the time and said, "You can't wear those, no earbud policy," and tapped on the policies paper on the wall. I protested, explaining they're hearing aids and not earbuds, and that I wouldn't be using them to listen to any music while I was working. Her reasoning was I didn't need them because I wasn't considered fully deaf, and I was doing this to get around the no earbud policy, directly quoting when I said they could play music. I can't wear them? Okay, let's see how this goes. Placed them into the case in my bag and started my shift. I couldn't understand my trainer, couldn't hear the customers, couldn't hear when orders were called to be sent out, things were going extremely slow, a couple of warm pastries burnt since I wasn't able to hear the timers, simple sentences had to be repeated multiple times with people basically yelling at me, just for me to be able to maybe piece a few words together. I guess the cherry on top was me ignoring one of the owners when she tried speaking to me. Karen came up to me and tried addressing me about it until she finally realized what was going on after she had repeated herself 5 times. By the end of that shift, I was allowed to wear my hearing aids, no questions asked. Her saying, "Oh, you're not totally deaf, you don't need hearing aids," is like telling someone who needs glasses, "Oh, you can see the outline of the stop sign when you drive, you don't need to wear your glasses." One thing I do want to note though is it's actually really cool that some hearing aids have Bluetooth capabilities. That's honestly something I really didn't even think about until now. Our next story comes from Many Attorney 4138. Don't touch the food if you insist. 20 years ago, I worked in the mailroom for a big company in Boston. It was our policy that when people ordered food for meetings, it was the job of whoever was running mail on the floor that the meeting was being held on to meet the caterer in the lobby, take the food to the meeting room, set it out, then clean up the room after the meeting was over. Normally, you would clean up during your hourly mail run and take the leftover food to the lunchroom. If we were not already on the lunchroom floor, you would take the food back to the mailroom and give it to the person that was running that floor. Now, at this point, it was normal for the mail staff to get first dibs on the leftovers. Some people didn't like that. This is the main conflict. So one day, my boss comes up to me and tells me that I'm going to have to come in Friday morning at 5 a.m. to set up the boardroom for an important partner meeting. I'm fine with that, extra pay and all. So I show up, set up a massive spread of food, and head down to the mailroom to waste some time on the computer. 15 minutes later, I get a call from Cool Secretary, the one that was in charge of the meeting. "Hey OP, the meeting was canceled. Can you get the food and bring it to the lunchroom? Keep it in the mailroom first, so you guys get a free breakfast if you want. Sorry about wasting your time." So I trot to the boardroom with a growling belly, thinking of how great it's gonna be to get first dibs for a change. There is no food. None. Gone. I go check the lunchroom. Nothing. Puzzled and hungry, I tell my boss and start my mail run. About halfway through the run, I come across the desk of Awful Secretary, and lo and behold, all of the food is behind her desk, stacked on cabinets and desks. "Is that the food from the big meeting?" "Yes it is, and you're not touching it." Cool Secretary asked me to bring that to the lunchroom. "I don't care. You guys will just keep it all for yourselves." I sent a message out to everyone telling them that I have the food, and if they want some, they can come ask me for it. But you are not to touch it. Okay. You don't have to get mad. I'm just doing my job." "No, you're not. You're trying to steal food that you didn't order." At this point, I'm thinking to myself, she didn't order it either. Cool Secretary did. But it's not my place to fight, so I just go back to the mailroom and tell my boss that I found the food and that she was adamant that we not touch it. He's like, "Whatever, we'll talk to Cool Secretary Monday when she gets back to the office with her partner." So now it's 5 p.m. and I'm doing my last run of the night, and I pass by the Awful Secretary's desk, and I see that she has already gone home and left all of the food stacked around her desk. Following her orders, I touched nothing. Monday morning comes and my boss has an evil grin on his face. "OP, can you deliver these cleaning supplies to Awful Secretary's desk?" I show up to a glorious mess. The gallon jugs of orange juice that awful secretary had left on her desks had fermented and burst open, spraying clouds of rotten orange juice all over the place. It looked like they had rolled onto their sides as they swelled and shot across the room like water rockets when the pressure got too much to contain. It was awesome. Why didn't you clean this up Friday night? Because you told me not to touch it. A memo went out the next morning reminding people of the meeting food policy. That's just absolutely perfect. The second I read that OP left it there for the weekend, I just slowly started to smile, knowing exactly where this was gonna go. Awesome job, OP. That was great. Our next story is from Wirecho. Won't replace a brand new broken lawnmower, but will let me return and reorder? Okay, so I bought a riding lawnmower a few years ago from a big home store. I paid for delivery, and upon delivery, it didn't start. The delivery truck had left by the time I had gotten gas in it, and figured this out, so I called the store. I explained that my brand new, just delivered today lawnmower was not starting. Immediately, the person on the phone asked me if I purchased the extended warranty. I hadn't, so they told me it would cost $100 to have them come get the lawnmower, and then however much more the repairs were. Mind you, this was brand freaking new. In my mind, they should bring me a new one to replace the one that didn't work upon delivery. No matter how much I argued, this worker was sticking to their story. I quickly changed my tactic and asked what the return policy was. As long as a return was initiated within 30 days, I could have a full refund, including the cost of delivery, and the store would come pick up the mower for me at no additional cost. So I pointed out that the store wouldn't replace my non-working item by taking one trip to my house to pick up the non-working one and bring me the one that worked. They instead would make 2 trips to pick up the one that didn't work, and then bring me the new one I purchased the second time as a totally different transaction. The worker said yes, and when I tried to point out how that made no sense, he didn't want to hear it. So right then and there, I initiated a refund. I then immediately ordered a new one and had him set up the delivery date. After the date was set, we had to schedule the pickup of the old mower. I made myself unavailable for any date other than the delivery date for the new one. So even though he had insisted they wouldn't just bring me a replacement mower and pick up the first one, they were now doing just that, but with the additional paperwork of processing a return and additional paperwork for delivery of the new mower. The manager called me later that day to apologize for the hassle, and they ended up waiving my delivery fee. I could be totally wrong on this, but in most countries, isn't there like a temporary, I think 90-day free warranty on pretty much every expensive thing you can buy? I think for some things it's even longer too. Like I'm pretty sure cell phones and laptops get a year. I could be totally wrong though. But in that case, I have no clue why they were going to make OP pay for repairs. So I'm glad he got a new one. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and I'll see you next time.